Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his face as he crawled through the narrow tunnel inside the space station. The metal walls were hot, and the air smelled like burning wires. He had been fixing broken things on the mining station for 3 years. But today felt different. Something was wrong with the big machine that made the station move between stars. The station floated near a red star called Proxima Centauri. It was far from Earth, farther than anyone had ever been before. Jake liked working here because it was quiet and the pay was good. Most days he just fixed small problems and made sure everything worked right. But today, the quantum drive was acting crazy. Jake looked at his tools. He had a small bag with wrenches, screwdrivers, and some fancy devices that could read energy levels. His tablet showed him pictures of what the inside of the machine should look like. Right now it looked all wrong. Purple light was coming from places where there should be no light at all. "Control room, this is Jake," he said into his radio. "The quantum core is really messed up. I can see energy building up in the wrong places." "Copy that, Jake," came the voice of Captain Lisa Thompson. "Can you fix it?" Jake looked at the mess in front of him. The quantum drive was supposed to fold space so the station could jump between stars. But something had gone wrong during the last jump. Now the machine was making its own energy and he didn't know why. "I think so," Jake said. "But it might take a while. This thing is doing stuff it's not supposed to do." He opened his toolbox and pulled out an energy reader. The little device started beeping fast as soon as he turned it on. The numbers on the screen were much higher than they should be. Jake had never seen readings this high before. The tunnel around him started to shake. Small pieces of metal fell from the ceiling and bounced off his helmet. The purple light got brighter and started to pulse like a heartbeat. Jake could feel the energy in the air making his skin tingle. "Control room, we have a problem," Jake said into his radio. "The energy levels are going up fast. I think the core might explode." "Get out of there right now," Captain Thompson said. Her voice sounded worried. Jake started to move back through the tunnel, but the shaking got worse. He could barely hold on to his tools as the station rocked back and forth. The purple light was now so bright it hurt his eyes even through his protective helmet. Then he heard a sound like thunder mixed with breaking glass. The quantum core was tearing a hole in space itself. Jake could see the air in front of him start to twist and bend. Reality was breaking apart. A wind that came from nowhere started pulling him toward the broken space. Jake grabbed onto a pipe with one hand and held his tool bag with the other. The wind got stronger and stronger. He could see stars and empty space through the hole that was growing bigger every second. "Jake, respond!" Captain Thompson's voice crackled through the radio. "What's happening down there?" Jake tried to answer, but the wind was too loud. His hand was slipping on the pipe. The hole in space was pulling everything toward it like a giant mouth. His tools started flying out of his bag and disappeared into the purple light. The pipe he was holding on to started to bend. Jake knew he had only seconds before it broke. He looked around for something else to grab, but there was nothing. The tunnel was empty except for him and the growing tear in reality. The pipe snapped. Jake flew through the air toward the hole in space. He passed through the purple light and felt like he was being stretched in all directions at once. His body felt hot and cold at the same time. Colors that didn't have names flashed in front of his eyes. He couldn't breathe and couldn't think. Then everything went black. Jake woke up lying on grass. Real grass. Not the fake plants they had on the space station. He could smell dirt and flowers and fresh air. The sun was warm on his face, but it wasn't the red sun from Proxima Centauri. This sun was yellow, like Earth's sun, but somehow different. He sat up slowly. His head hurt, and his whole body felt sore. He was still wearing his work clothes and his tool belt, but his helmet was gone. Around him was the most beautiful place he had ever seen. Green hills rolled away in all directions. Trees with silver leaves grew in small groups. In the distance, he could see mountains with snow on their tops. But something was wrong with this place. The grass around him was black and dead in a perfect circle. Inside the circle, Jake could see pieces of metal and burned rocks. It looked like something had exploded here a long time ago. Jake stood up and looked around more carefully. Near his feet, he could see white bones sticking out of the ground. They looked old, very old. Next to the bones was something that made him stop breathing for a moment. It was a sword. The sword was beautiful. The blade was long and straight and looked like it was made of silver and light. The handle was wrapped in leather that felt warm to touch. Even though it was lying on the ground, the sword seemed to glow with its own light. Jake had never seen anything like it. On the space station, they had laser tools and plasma cutters, but this was something different. This was made by hand by someone who cared about making it perfect. The blade had words written on it in letters Jake couldn't read, but somehow they felt important. He looked around to see if anyone was watching. The hills were empty except for some birds flying overhead. Jake reached down and picked up the sword. The moment his fingers touched the handle, everything changed. Light exploded from the sword, brighter than the sun. Jake felt power flow through his body like electricity, but it didn't hurt. It felt good, like drinking cold water when you're really thirsty. The sword felt alive in his hands, like it was happy to finally have someone hold it again. But the light wasn't just pretty to look at. Jake could feel it spreading out from him like waves on a pond. It was traveling fast, faster than sound, faster than anything. The light was telling the world that something important had happened. Jake didn't know it, but his life had just become very complicated. Across the world of Ethros, powerful beings felt the sword wake up. Dragons lifted their great heads and roared. Elves stopped what they were doing and looked toward the old battlefield. Dwarves deep in their mountain homes felt the earth shake with power, and in dark places where evil things lived, creatures that had waited 1,000 years for this moment began to move. Jake Martinez, a simple mechanic from Earth, now held the most powerful weapon in the world, but he was also holding the most dangerous thing he could possibly have found. The sword had a name, Dawnbreaker, and it had been waiting a very long time for someone like Jake to find it. Jake walked through the strange forest with the glowing sword in his hand. He had been walking for 2 hours and still had no idea where he was. The trees looked normal enough, but some had purple leaves and others had bark that sparkled like diamonds. Every few minutes he saw animals he didn't recognize. Small creatures with too many legs ran between the trees, and birds with 4 wings flew overhead. The sword kept glowing, which made Jake nervous. He tried to put it down several times, but every time he let go, it just appeared back in his hand. It was like the weapon was stuck to him now. He could feel it humming with power, and sometimes it got warmer when he walked in certain directions. Jake heard a sound behind him and turned around. A creature the size of a horse was walking toward him through the trees. It looked like a wolf, but its fur was blue and its eyes glowed red. When it saw Jake, it stopped moving and started to growl. The sword in Jake's hand suddenly blazed with bright light. The wolf creature took one look at the light and ran away as fast as it could. Jake could hear it crashing through the forest until the sound faded away. "What the hell was that?" Jake said to himself. He kept walking, but now he noticed that all the forest sounds had stopped. No birds were singing, no small animals were moving in the bushes. Everything was quiet, like the whole forest was holding its breath. An hour later, Jake came to a road made of white stones. It was the first sign of intelligent life he had seen since waking up in this place. The road was old but well made, and it headed toward the mountains in the distance. Jake decided to follow it, hoping it would lead him to people who could help him. He had only been walking on the road for 10 minutes when he heard the sound of wings above him. Jake looked up and almost fell over from shock. A dragon was flying toward him. It wasn't like the dragons in movies or books. This one was real, and it was huge. Its body was as long as a school bus, and its wings blocked out the sun. Its scales were dark green and looked like metal armor. When it opened its mouth, Jake could see rows of teeth longer than his fingers. The dragon landed on the road in front of Jake with a sound like thunder. The ground shook under its weight. It looked at Jake with eyes that were older and smarter than any animal's eyes should be. Then it spoke. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he could tell the dragon was angry. Very angry. The dragon's voice was deep and powerful, like rocks falling down a mountain. It pointed one claw at the sword in Jake's hand and said something. That sounded like a question. "I don't understand," Jake said, holding up his free hand. "I can't speak your language." The dragon's eyes got even angrier. It spread its wings wide and roared so loud that Jake had to cover his ears. Then it breathed fire into the sky. The flames were so hot that Jake could feel them from 20 feet away. Jake realized he was in serious trouble. The dragon was getting ready to attack him. He could see it taking a deep breath, preparing to breathe fire right at him. The sword in his hand suddenly got very warm. Without thinking, Jake raised it up. Light shot out of the blade and formed a wall between him and the dragon. When the dragon breathed fire, the flames hit the light and bounced away harmlessly. The dragon looked surprised. It tried breathing fire again, but the same thing happened. The sword's light protected Jake completely. Jake didn't wait to see what the dragon would try next. He turned and ran as fast as he could down the white stone road. Behind him, he could hear the dragon roaring and the sound of its wings as it took off to chase him. Jake ran for what felt like hours. The sword made him faster and stronger than he should have been, but he could still hear the dragon somewhere behind him. Every few minutes, he would see its shadow pass overhead as it searched for him. Finally, Jake saw buildings ahead. It was a small town built next to a river. The houses were made of stone and wood and had roofs that curved upward at the edges. Smoke was coming from several chimneys, which meant people lived there. Jake ran into the town, hoping to find help, but as soon as the first person saw him, they screamed and ran away. It was a woman carrying a basket of fruit. When she saw Jake and the glowing sword, she dropped the basket and ran into her house, slamming the door behind her. More people came out of their houses to see what was happening. They looked like humans, but they were all very tall and thin, with pointed ears and silver hair. Jake realized these must be elves, like in fantasy stories. When the elves saw Jake, they all started talking at once in their language. They sounded scared and angry. Some of them pointed at the sword. Others pointed at Jake himself. A few of them ran away, but most stayed and formed a circle around him. An old elf with a long beard came forward. He was wearing robes covered in strange symbols, and he carried a staff topped with a crystal. When he spoke, his voice was calm but firm. Again, Jake couldn't understand the words, but he could tell the elf was asking him questions. "I'm sorry," Jake said. "I don't speak your language. I'm lost, and I need help." The old elf's eyes went wide when Jake spoke. He said something to the other elves, and they all started talking excitedly. Some of them looked afraid, but others looked angry. A young elf woman stepped forward from the crowd. She was beautiful, with long silver hair and green eyes. Unlike the others, she didn't look afraid. She looked curious. She said something to Jake in a soft voice. Jake shook his head. "I don't understand. Do any of you speak English? Or any human language?" The young elf woman's eyes got very wide. She said a word that sounded like human, but in their language. Then she said something else to the crowd. The reaction was immediate. Half the elves screamed and ran away. The other half drew swords and bows and pointed them at Jake. The old elf with the staff started chanting something, and his crystal began to glow. "Wait," Jake said, holding up his hands. "I'm not here to hurt anyone." But it was too late. The elves were preparing to attack. Jake could see arrows being aimed at his heart. The old elf's staff was glowing brighter, and Jake could feel magic building in the air around him. Then the dragon arrived. It landed in the middle of the town with a crash that broke several roof tiles. The elves forgot about Jake for a moment and turned to face this new threat. The dragon and the old elf started talking to each other in what sounded like an argument. While they were distracted, the young elf woman grabbed Jake's arm and pulled him toward an alley between two houses. She moved quickly and quietly, and Jake followed her without thinking. She led him through a maze of narrow streets and alleys until they were on the other side of town. There, hidden behind a barn, she finally stopped and turned to face him. She said something in her language, then pointed to herself and said, "Mira." Jake understood. She was telling him her name. He pointed to himself and said, "Jake." Mira nodded, then said something else. She pointed at the sword, then at Jake, then at the town behind them. She looked worried. Jake was starting to understand that he was in big trouble. Whatever this sword was, it was making everyone afraid of him. And being human seemed to make things even worse. Mira pulled a small device from her bag. It looked like a crystal, but it had metal parts attached to it. She held it up to her ear and spoke into it quietly. While she was talking, Jake heard sounds from the town. The dragon was roaring again, and he could hear people shouting. It sounded like they were organizing a search party. Mira finished talking into her device and put it away. She looked at Jake and said something urgent. Then she pointed toward the forest and started walking. Jake followed her. He didn't have much choice. Everyone else in this place wanted to kill him, but this elf woman was trying to help him. He didn't know why, but he was grateful. As they walked into the dark forest, Jake could hear the sounds of the search party behind them. Dogs were barking, and he could see lights moving between the trees. They were hunting him like he was a dangerous criminal. Jake looked down at the sword in his hand. The blade was still glowing softly, like it was happy to be with him. But its light was also making him the most wanted person in this world. He just hoped Mira knew what she was doing, because Jake was completely lost in every way possible. Jake and Mira had been hiding in a cave for 3 days. The cave was deep and dark, carved into the side of a mountain far from any towns. Mira had brought food and water, but Jake was getting tired of eating berries and dried meat. During those 3 days, Mira had been working on something. She had a collection of crystals and metal pieces that she was putting together like a puzzle. Jake watched her work, trying to understand what she was making. On the 3rd day, she finished. The device looked like a headband made of silver wire with small crystals attached to it. Mira put it on her head, then handed a similar one to Jake. "Put it on," she said. Jake almost dropped the device. Those were the first words he had understood since arriving in this world. "You can speak English?" he asked. "Not exactly," Mira said. Her voice sounded strange, like she was talking underwater. "This device translates our thoughts. Now we can understand each other." Jake put on the headband. It felt warm against his skin, and he could sense something connecting his mind to Mira's. "My name is Princess Mira Goldleaf," she said. "I am daughter of the Elf King, and you are in very big trouble." "I figured that out," Jake said. "Everyone wants to kill me, but I don't understand why. I haven't done anything wrong." Mira looked sad. "It is not what you have done. It is what you are." "What do you mean?" "You are human," Mira said. "And that sword you carry is Dawnbreaker, the most powerful weapon ever made. The combination of the two makes you the most dangerous person in our world." Jake looked down at the sword. It was lying next to him, still glowing softly. "I just found it lying on the ground. I thought it might be valuable." "It belonged to Sir Galahad the Pure," Mira explained. "He was the greatest hero our world ever knew. 1,000 years ago, he used that sword to drive the humans out of our world and save us all." Drive humans out? Jake was confused. Were humans here before?" Mira nodded. "Yes. They came through magical portals like you did. At first, there were only a few of them. They said they were refugees from a dying world. Some of our people wanted to help them." "What happened?" "More and more humans came. They were desperate and hungry. They started taking land and resources that belonged to us. When we tried to stop them, they fought back. Soon there was war everywhere." Jake felt sick. "So humans really were the bad guys." "That is what everyone believes now," Mira said carefully. "But I have read the old books that most people have forgotten. The truth is more complicated." "What do you mean?" Mira was quiet for a moment. "The humans were not evil. They were just desperate. Their world was dying, and they had nowhere else to go. But our people were afraid. They saw more humans arriving every day and thought they would be conquered." "So what happened to Sir Galahad?" "He tried to make peace at first," Mira said. "But the war got worse and worse. Finally, he decided the only way to stop the fighting was to close the portals and send all humans back to their world. He used Dawnbreaker to seal the magical gateways. But he died doing it? Yes. The magic was too powerful. It killed him, but it worked. All the humans were sent away, and the portals were closed. Our world was safe." Jake understood now why everyone was afraid of him. "And now I'm here with his sword. Everyone thinks I'm going to start the war again." "Yes," Mira said. "There are prophecies that say when Dawnbreaker chooses a new owner, either our world will be saved or it will be destroyed. And since you are human, everyone thinks I'm here to destroy everything." Jake put his head in his hands. "This is insane. I'm just a mechanic. I fix machines. I don't want to conquer anyone." "I believe you," Mira said quietly. "That is why I helped you escape. You do not act like the humans in our stories. You seem good." "Thanks, I guess." Jake looked at her. "But why are you helping me? If your people find out, won't you get in trouble?" "Yes. My father would be very angry. But I think the old stories might be wrong about humans, and I think this sword chose you for a reason." Before Jake could answer, they heard sounds outside the cave. Voices were calling to each other, and Jake could hear the heavy footsteps of many people walking on the rocky ground outside. They found Us, Mira whispered. The voices got louder. Jake could hear metal armor clanking and the sound of weapons being drawn. Through the translation device, he could understand what they were saying. "The trail leads to this cave," said a deep voice. "The human is inside." "Are you sure, General Victor?" asked another voice. "The dragon saw them go in here," the first voice replied. "This time the human will not escape." Mira looked at Jake with wide eyes. "General Victor Ironforge is here. He leads the dwarf army. If he has found us, we are in serious trouble." "Why? What will he do?" "He will try to kill you," Mira said simply. "The dwarves lost many people in the human war. Victor hates humans more than anyone." The footsteps outside got closer. Jake could see shadows moving past the cave entrance. "Come. Out, human!" shouted General Victor. "We know you are in there. Come out and face your judgment." Jake looked at Mira. "What do we do?" "I do not know," she whispered. "There are too many of them. Even with Dawnbreaker, you cannot fight a whole army." Jake thought about it. He could feel the sword's power calling to him. It wanted to fight. It wanted to protect him. But Jake wasn't a warrior. He was just a guy who fixed things. "Maybe I should just surrender," he said. "No." Mira grabbed his arm. "They will execute you immediately. Victor does not believe in mercy for humans." The voices outside were getting impatient. "If you do not come out, we will come in and get you," Victor shouted. Jake made a decision. He stood up and picked up Dawnbreaker. The sword immediately blazed with light, filling the cave with its glow. "I'm going out there," he said. "Jake, no!" "I have to try to talk to them. Maybe I can make them understand that I'm not here to hurt anyone." Mira looked like she wanted to argue, but she nodded. "I will come with you." "You don't have to do that. You've already done enough." "Yes, I do," Mira said firmly. "You are under my protection now. That means something to my people." Together, they walked toward the cave entrance. Jake could see the silhouettes of many soldiers waiting outside. As they stepped into the sunlight, Jake got his first look at a dwarf army. General Victor Ironforge was exactly what Jake expected a dwarf general to look like. He was short and stocky, with a thick black beard and armor made of polished steel. He carried a huge hammer that looked like it could crush a car. Behind him stood 50 dwarf soldiers, all armed with axes, hammers, and crossbows. When Victor saw Jake, his eyes filled with hatred. "So, the stories are true. The humans have returned." "I'm not here to invade anyone," Jake said, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I just want to go home." Victor laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Home? You will never see home again, human. You will die here, just like your ancestors should have died 1,000 years ago." "General Victor," Mira stepped forward, "this human is under my protection. I ask you to hear him speak before you pass judgment." Victor looked at Mira with surprise. "Princess Mira, what are you doing with this creature?" "He is not what you think," Mira said. "He is not a warrior or a conqueror. He is just lost and afraid. He carries Dawnbreaker." Victor pointed at the sword with his hammer. "That weapon has been waiting 1,000 years for a human to claim it. This is the beginning of the Second Human War." "No, it's not," Jake said, firmly. "I don't want to fight anyone. I just want to understand what's happening to me." But Victor wasn't listening. He raised his hammer and signaled to his soldiers. "Capture them both. We will take them back to the stronghold for trial." The dwarf soldiers moved forward, but something strange happened. As they got closer to Jake, Dawnbreaker's light got brighter and brighter. The soldiers had to cover their eyes. Then the light did something unexpected. Instead of hurting the soldiers, it seemed to calm them. Jake could see the anger leaving their faces. They looked confused, like they were trying to remember something important. Victor noticed it too. "What sorcery is this?" he demanded. Jake looked down at the sword. He could feel it doing something, but he didn't understand what. It was like the weapon was showing the soldiers something that only they could see. "The sword shows truth," Mira whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "It is showing them their own hearts." One of the soldiers lowered his weapon. "General," he said slowly, "I do not think this human means us harm." "What?" Victor spun around to face his soldier. "Look at him, sir. Really look at him. He is not like the humans in our stories. He is afraid and confused. This is not the face of a conqueror." Other soldiers were nodding in agreement. The sword's light was affecting all of them, helping them see past their fears and prejudices. Victor's face turned red with anger. "The human has enchanted you. Do not listen to his magic." But it was too late. The soldiers were putting down their weapons. They could see that Jake was telling the truth about not wanting to hurt anyone. Then everything changed. A new sound filled the air, a sound like breaking glass mixed with screaming wind. Dark clouds began forming overhead, even though the sky had been clear moments before. "What is that?" Jake asked. Mira's face went pale. "Valdris," she whispered. "The Shadowmancer has found us." As if summoned by her words, dark shapes began rising from the ground around them. Shadow creatures with glowing red eyes and claws like knives surrounded the cave. At their head stood a figure in a black robe. The shadow creatures attacked without warning. They moved like black smoke given form, flowing around rocks and trees to surround Jake and the others. Their red eyes burned with evil hunger, and their claws could cut through steel. General Victor forgot all about capturing Jake. "Form ranks," he shouted to his soldiers. "Protect the princess." The dwarf soldiers quickly arranged themselves in a circle, shields raised and weapons ready. But their normal weapons couldn't hurt creatures made of shadow. When they swung their axes and hammers, the blades passed right through the dark forms. Jake felt Dawnbreaker grow warm in his hand. The sword wanted to fight these creatures. It was made for this kind of battle. Without thinking, Jake raised the blade and light exploded from it like a small sun. The shadow creatures screamed and pulled back from the light. Where the sword's glow touched them, they became solid enough to hurt. Victor saw this and shouted to his men, "Stay close to the human. His sword makes them real." It felt strange to Jake, fighting alongside people who had been trying to capture him just minutes before. But the shadow creatures were the real enemy now. One of them lunged at Mira, and Jake moved without thinking. Dawnbreaker cut through. The creature like it was made of paper, and it dissolved into smoke. "Behind you," Mira shouted. Jake spun around and saw 3 more creatures attacking from different directions. He swung the sword in a wide arc, and its light destroyed all 3 at once. The power flowing through him was incredible, but he could feel it taking something from him, too. Using the sword was like running a marathon. He couldn't do it forever. General Victor fought beside him, his hammer crushing shadow creatures that the sword's light had made solid. "I have never seen anything like this." "Human," Victor said between swings. "You fight with honor." "Thanks," Jake panted. "But there are too many of them." More creatures kept rising from the ground. For every one they destroyed, 2 more appeared. And in the center of it all stood Valdris, the Shadowmancer, watching the battle with cold amusement. "You cannot win, young human," Valdris called out. His voice sounded like ice breaking. "Give me the sword, and I will make your death quick." "Not happening!" Jake shouted back. Valdris raised his staff, and the air around them got colder. Then you will learn what real power looks like. Dark energy shot from the staff toward Jake. He raised Dawnbreaker just in time, and the sword's light met the shadow magic in the air between them. Where they touched, reality itself seemed to crack and spark. "This is too much for us," Victor said. "We need help." As if answering his call, they heard the sound of wings overhead. The dragon that had chased Jake before landed near the battle, but this time it wasn't trying to attack him. Instead, it breathed fire at the shadow creatures, working together, with Dawnbreaker's light to destroy them. The dragon spoke, and through Mira's translation device, Jake could understand it. "I am Elder Korath," the dragon said. "I have lived for 2,000 years, and I remember the truth about the human war." "What truth?" Jake asked, still fighting off shadow creatures. "That humans were not the real enemy," Korath replied, his great voice carrying over the sound of battle. "The real enemy was always the shadows. Valdris has been waiting, planning, growing stronger while we blamed humans for everything." General Victor looked shocked. "What are you saying?" "The human refugees 1,000 years ago were running from him," Korath explained. "Valdris had already destroyed their world. They came here seeking safety, but he followed them. The war between humans and our people was exactly what he wanted. It made us all weaker." Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with Valdris's magic. "So the human invasion—" "Was Valdris manipulating both sides?" Mira finished. "He made humans more desperate and made our people more afraid. He wanted us to fight each other instead of fighting him." Valdris laughed from across the battlefield. "Very good. You finally understand. But it is too late. While you spent 1,000 years hating each other, I have been preparing. Soon this world will be mine. And then I will use its power to conquer others." More shadow creatures rose from the ground, but these were different. They were bigger, stronger, and harder to destroy. Jake's sword light was getting dimmer as his strength faded. "We need more help," he said. "Help is coming," Mira said, pointing to the sky. Flying creatures filled the air above them. But these weren't dragons. They were flying machines made of metal and light, moving faster than any bird. Jake's heart jumped with hope as he recognized them. They were human ships from Earth. The lead ship landed near the battle, and soldiers in advanced armor poured out. Their leader was a woman with short brown hair and captain's stripes on her uniform. "Jake Martinez," she called out. "We're here to get you home." "Captain Thompson?" Jake couldn't believe it. "How did you find me?" "We followed the quantum signature." "From your accident," Lisa Thompson said, firing an energy weapon at the shadow creatures. "But it looks like you're in the middle of something important." "These are my friends," Jake said quickly, gesturing to Mira, Victor, and Korath. "They're helping me fight the real enemy." Captain Thompson looked around at the elves, dwarves, and dragon fighting alongside her rescue team. "Well, this is definitely not what I expected to find. The Earth soldiers' advanced weapons were very effective against the shadow creatures. Their plasma rifles and energy shields gave the Alliance the boost they needed. For the first time since the battle started, they were winning. But Valdris wasn't finished. "You think your technology can defeat magic that is older than your world?" he snarled. The Shadowmancer raised his staff high and spoke words in a language that hurt to hear. The ground beneath them began to crack and split. Dark energy poured out of the cracks like poisonous water. "He's trying to tear open a portal," Korath warned. "If he succeeds, he can summon his full army from the Shadow Realm." "Can we stop him?" Captain Thompson asked. Only Dawnbreaker has the power, Mira said. But Jake would have to get close enough to touch the portal with the sword. Jake looked across the battlefield. Valdris was surrounded by his strongest shadow creatures, and dark energy was crackling around him like lightning. Getting close enough would be almost impossible. I'll do it, Jake said. No, Victor said firmly. It is too dangerous. Those creatures will tear you apart before you get halfway there. Then we make a path for him, Captain Thompson said. She spoke into her radio. All units, concentrate fire on the target area. We're going to punch a hole through their defenses. I will carry you, Korath said to Jake. My armor can protect us from their claws. And I will shield you with magic, Mira added, pulling out a crystal that glowed with silver light. General Victor hefted his hammer. And my soldiers will make sure nothing gets past us. Jake looked around at all these people, human, elf, dwarf, and dragon, working together to help him. A few days ago, they had all been enemies. Now they were risking their lives for each other. All right, Jake said, climbing onto Korath's back. Let's end this. The dragon launched into the air just as Captain Thompson's soldiers opened fire. Energy beams lit up the battlefield, destroying shadow creatures by the dozen. Victor and his dwarves charged forward, their weapons glowing with Mira's protective magic. Korath flew straight toward Valdris, dodging bolts of dark energy and the claws of flying shadow creatures. Jake held Dawnbreaker ready, feeling its power building for one final strike. They were almost there when Valdris played his last card. He pointed his staff at the human ships and spoke a word of power. Dark energy shot toward Captain Thompson and her soldiers, but the energy never reached them. General Victor threw himself in front of the blast, taking the full force of Valdris's magic. The dwarf general fell to the ground, his armor cracked and smoking. "Victor!" Mira screamed. The general struggled to sit up. "Finish it, human!" He said to Jake. "Show this monster what real courage looks like." Jake felt something change inside him. These people weren't just his allies now, they were his friends. And he wasn't going to let Valdris hurt them anymore. Korath dove toward the growing portal. Jake raised Dawnbreaker high, and the sword blazed with light brighter than it had ever shone before. As they reached the portal, Jake brought the blade down and touched it to the swirling darkness. The effect was immediate. Light and shadow met and canceled each other out. The portal began to collapse, sucking Valdris's shadow creatures back into the void where they came from. "Impossible!" Valdris shrieked. But his own magic was turning against him now, pulling him toward the collapsing portal. "This isn't over, human!" he called out as the darkness swallowed him. "I will return, and when I do—" The portal snapped shut, cutting off his words. Valdris was gone, vanished back to the shadow realm where he belonged. Jake slid off Korath's back, exhausted. Dawnbreaker's light had faded to a gentle glow. Around the battlefield, the last of the shadow creatures were dissolving into smoke. They had won. 3 days after the battle with Valdris, Jake thought his problems were over. He was wrong. He was sitting with Captain Thompson and her team at their temporary camp when the sky filled with ships. But these weren't rescue vessels. They were military craft bristling with weapons. The largest ship landed near their camp, and soldiers in black armor poured out. A man in an expensive suit walked up to Captain Thompson. He had cold eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. Behind him marched 100 corporate security troops armed with the latest Earth weapons. "Captain Thompson," the man said, "I am Director Marcus Webb from Titan Mining Corporation, by order. Of the Earth Colonial Authority, you are relieved of command." On what grounds? Captain Thompson demanded. Unauthorized contact with alien species, Webb replied smoothly. And failure to secure valuable resources for Earth's benefit. Jake felt his stomach drop. What resources? Webb turned to look at him. This entire world, Mr. Martinez. Our surveys show massive deposits of rare minerals, unlimited magical energy sources, and a native population that can be easily controlled. Titan Corporation has been granted the rights to colonize this planet. You can't do that, Jake said. This world already has people living on it. Not people, Webb corrected. Aliens. And according to Earth law, aliens have no rights to planetary ownership. Princess Mira stepped forward from where she had been talking with Elder Korath. The translation device let her understand Webb's words, and her face was pale with anger. You want to steal our world? She asked. Webb looked at her with the same expression he might use for an interesting insect. We want to develop it properly. Your people have had thousands of years, and you're still living in medieval conditions. Earth will bring progress, technology, civilization, and slavery, General Victor added, walking up with his arm in a sling from his injuries. I have heard of human civilization from the old stories. Webb's smile got wider. Only for those who resist. Those who cooperate will be treated well. Jake felt sick. This was exactly what the people of this world had feared about humans. Webb was proving that all their worst stories were true. I won't let you do this, Jake said. You don't have a choice, Webb replied. Our legal claim is ironclad. And if the locals resist, he gestured to his armed soldiers. Well, we're prepared for that too. Captain Thompson stepped between Webb and Jake. Director, I strongly advise against this course of action. These people helped us fight a common enemy. They've shown honor and courage. We should be making them allies, not enemies. Your opinion is noted, Captain, Webb said coldly, but you're no longer in charge here. Security, arrest Captain Thompson and her team for insubordination. The corporate soldiers raised their weapons, but they hesitated when they saw that Jake was holding Dawnbreaker. The sword wasn't glowing brightly, but everyone could feel its power. Stand down, Mr. Martinez, Webb said. That weapon belongs to Earth now. It will be studied and replicated for our military. Like hell it will, Jake said. You're outnumbered, Webb pointed out. And our weapons are more advanced than anything on this primitive world. Jake looked around at his friends. Mira looked determined but worried. Victor was injured but ready to fight. Korath was coiled like a spring, ready to breathe fire. Captain Thompson and her loyal soldiers were reaching for their weapons despite being outnumbered. You're right about one thing, Jake said to Webb. Your weapons are more advanced than anything on this world. But you forgot something important. What's that? I'm not from this world either. Jake raised Dawnbreaker, and this time he didn't just use its holy power. He used his knowledge as an engineer, his understanding of how energy and matter worked. The sword responded to his will, its light reaching out to touch the corporate soldiers' weapons. Every energy rifle, plasma cannon, and electronic device in the corporate army suddenly stopped working. The soldiers looked down at their useless equipment in confusion. How did you do that? Webb demanded. Electromagnetic pulse, Jake explained. The sword can channel its energy in more ways than just making light. I just fried every electronic component in your weapons. Captain Thompson grinned and drew her own weapon, which had been shielded from Jake's pulse. I'd say the odds just changed. Webb's face turned red with anger. This is only a temporary setback. More ships will come. Earth will not give up this world. Maybe not all of Earth, Jake said. But you're not representing Earth. You're representing corporate greed. Same thing, Webb sneered. No, it's not. Captain Thompson stepped forward. Director Webb, I'm placing you under arrest for violations of the Colonial Contact Protocol and attempted genocide. You have no authority? Actually, I do. Thompson showed him a document on her tablet. As the ranking military officer on an alien world, I have full authority to override civilian contractors who threaten interplanetary peace. Webb looked around at his soldiers with their useless weapons, then at the dragons, elves, and dwarfs who were clearly ready to fight. He realized he was trapped. This isn't over, he said. Earth needs these resources. Our population is growing. Our planet is dying. We have to expand somewhere. Then let's talk about doing it the right way, Jake said. Over the next several hours, they worked out a plan that nobody loved but everyone could live with. Earth would establish a small trading post on Ethros, but only in a designated area, and only with local permission. In exchange, Earth would share medical technology and scientific knowledge. Most importantly, no military forces would be stationed on the planet. Jake found himself in the middle of all the negotiations. Both sides trusted him because he had fought beside the people of Ethros, but was still human. He was the bridge between two worlds. What about you? Mira asked him when the talks were finished. Will you go back to Earth? Jake looked around at the magical world he had accidentally discovered. Then he looked down at Dawnbreaker, still glowing softly in his hand. I don't think I can, he said. This sword chose me for a reason, and I think that reason is to make sure both our worlds can coexist peacefully. The sword will stay with you no matter where you go, Elder Korath said. But perhaps it would be wise for you to stay here, at least for now. General Victor nodded. Someone needs to watch the humans who come to trade. Make sure they remember the agreements we made today. Captain Thompson looked sad but understanding. Earth could use an ambassador here, someone who knows both worlds. Jake made his decision. I'll stay, at least until I'm sure the peace will hold. And if more people like Webb show up? Mira asked. Jake smiled and hefted Dawnbreaker. Then I guess they'll learn why this sword has such a scary reputation. 6 months later, Jake stood on a hill overlooking the first human Ethros trading post. It was small but growing, a place where humans could learn about magic, and the people of Ethros could discover human technology. Captain Thompson visited regularly, bringing supplies and news from Earth. She had been promoted for her handling of the first contact situation, and Webb had been arrested for his unauthorized military action. The trading post was proof that humans and the people of Ethros could work together. Human doctors used Earth medicine to help heal injuries that magic couldn't fix. Elf mages shared their knowledge to help humans understand how magical energy worked. Dwarf craftsmen learned to use human tools, while human engineers marveled at magical construction techniques. Jake had built himself a small house near the trading post. It had human technology for comfort and elven magic for protection. Dawnbreaker hung over his fireplace, no longer glowing constantly, but ready to defend both worlds if needed. Princess Mira visited often. She had convinced her father to officially recognize the trading agreements, and she served as the elven ambassador to Earth. She and Jake had become close friends, and sometimes Jake thought it might become something more. General Victor had recovered from his injuries and now commanded a joint security force of dwarfs and humans who kept the peace at the trading post. He and Jake often shared drinks and stories, laughing about how they had tried to kill each other when they first met. Elder Korath had appointed himself the keeper of historical records, making sure that the true story of human ethos relations was preserved so the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. One evening, as Jake was watching the sunset from his porch, Mira came to visit. "Any regrets?" she asked, sitting beside him. Jake thought about his old life, fixing machines on a space station, being alone most of the time, never feeling like he was part of something important. "No," he said. "I never felt like I belonged anywhere before. But here, with all of you, I feel like I'm home. Even though you're the only human living permanently on Ethros?" "Maybe that's exactly why it works," Jake said. "I'm not human or elf or dwarf or dragon. I'm something new, a bridge between worlds." Mira smiled. "The bridge builder. I like that." Jake looked down at Dawnbreaker hanging by his door. The sword had stopped glowing weeks ago, as if it was finally at peace. It had found what it was looking for. Not a warrior to wield it in battle, but a protector to keep the peace. "You know what the funny thing is?" Jake said. "What?" "I really was just trying to get home. I never wanted to be a hero or change the world. I just wanted to fix a broken machine and go back to my normal life. And instead, you fixed something much more important, Mira."